Hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Axelerant Live webinar. I am Trupti Vosley, your host and a technical workforce manager for QA at Axelerant. Today we have a special guest, Kunal Kursija, a seasoned software engineer and an open source enthusiast with over a decade of experience in Drupal. In today's session, Kunal is going to dive into an essential topic, which is migration from Hubspot to Drupal. So if you are someone who is transitioning to this through this migration, or you're just curious about this process, then you're in for a knowledge-packed session. Kunal has been a key contributor at Axelerant since 2017 and currently holds an important role of a staff software engineer. So without waiting more, I would like to welcome Kunal for this live webinar. Hi Kunal.
Hey Trupti.
Welcome to the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words and the introduction. I'm pretty excited to be here.
Yeah. So Kunal, before we dive into the session, I would like to ask you, how did you land up with this idea of doing a POC on, such huge CMS? So what was the thought process behind doing this POC?
Actually, it was a request from the client's end. So to give you a larger context on this, I work on Red Hat project, and this was a requirement in Red Hat, where Red Hat has, let's say, two sites. One is called Open Hybrid Cloud, and another one is called redhat.com. So the redhat.com is on Drupal, and the Open Hybrid Cloud is on Hubspot. We had a request that, hey, we want to migrate the Hubspot content to Drupal. And the underlying reasons for, Red Hat were that they were managing content at two different places, so two different teams, and they wanted to, bring that content into a single platform. To give you more context on this, redhat.com is, actually managed on Red Hat infrastructure, which means hosting, and different aspects of security and etc. So basically, this was a request from the client's end, and hence, we did a quick POC and we said, yes, this is possible. We gave them estimations and, how much time it is going to take. And yeah, as of now, this project is actually live. We have already migrated the website to Drupal. So it started with a POC and it went live after in the month of December.
Okay, so you mentioned that you did a quick POC. So how quick was it? Like a week or 15 days or more?
So after, we had the request, we asked basically how does the HubSpot data look? We did a quick analysis of the data and we tried some dummy migrations. Of course, it was not that straightforward. And there was some to and fro's with respect to, hey, what are the requirements? We had some questions, we got the answers. So the POC actually took somewhere around 15 to 30 days. That includes the to and fro aspect as well.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you said that the POC is already done and the migration is also done for the Red Hat project?
Yeah.
This site is now on Drupal?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Good. I thought this is just a POC that you have done, but congratulations on your efforts and congratulations for migrating from HubSpot to Drupal. I am excited to see what you have implemented in this migration and the strategy that you have done. So without any further delay, let's dive into your session. And to the team, if you have any questions regarding the session or regarding this migration strategy that Kunal is going to present, please put your questions on the chat box and we'll take it at the end of the session. Over to you, Kunal.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trupti. I'm excited to talk about this. So yeah, let's jump into it. So HubSpot to Drupal migration essentials. At large, in this session, we are going to talk about, the requirement that I had to move this site from HubSpot to Drupal. We will touch base upon various aspects of how the HubSpot data looks like, and then, what kind of analysis around data you need to do, the data mapping work, which is common for any, whenever you're working with Drupal migrations at large, and then the approach of migration that we decided, how we played around with the data. So, it acted as a final source of truth for us, and some of the challenges that I faced while working on this migration. So at large, we are going to talk about these. And yeah, let's begin. As I said earlier, that the requirement for this project was move this site from HubSpot to Drupal, and the underlying reasons were security, hosting cost, and the contract renewal that was due in the month of December for the client. So we wanted to move this website before the HubSpot contract renewal. And these reasons are dynamic. Different clients will have different reasons to move their site from HubSpot to Drupal, or any platform to any other platform. Few of them could be like performance, security, cost, then something else I can't think of any at the moment, but these factors are dynamic. So for us, it was cost and security. Moving on, let's talk about how the HubSpot data looks like. There are 4 different images in this slide. Let's talk about the very first one that we have above the arrow. So all of this data as of now is dummy. So the very first image shows a CSV export that you get from HubSpot, and this CSV contains all the data related to a particular site. If I have to break this down into various images, you see these 3 images. The very first one shows what is the name of the blog, what is the titles of the post, then what is SEO data, SEO title for the blog post, language, URL, who the author of the post is. So this is the very first image. The second image shows categorization or the tags column. You see what are the categories associated with this blog post, the meta description, then various date information like when this blog post was published on HubSpot, when this was modified on HubSpot. Then the third image, this one shows that shows the main content of the blog post. And post body is probably the most important column when you export data from HubSpot. And this contains all the HTML markup associated with a post. Then you have featured image URL. This is basically like a hero banner thing. Then head HTML, it was always empty in this case for me. And then you have status and archived column, which basically tell you whether this post is published or not on HubSpot, or whether it is archived or not. So this is the HubSpot data. Chances are whenever you are working with any HubSpot to any other platform migration, this is the data that you get from HubSpot. Moving on, now you have the data with you. What are the next steps? The very first one would be analyzing this data. And to analyze this data, you will have to get into the CSV, completely identify each and every column, what kind of information it has, and identify everything. In our case, or in my case, when I worked on this POC initially, I identified that there were markup, in the post body column, we had HTML markup. This markup basically contained different HTML elements, different twig elements. Then it contained images. Then that was with respect to the post body. After that, I had information with respect to categorization. In Drupal, we call it taxonomies, right? And then there was date-related information like published date, updated date, etc. Then we had users who were associated with these blog posts. So this was some of the data that I was able to identify from that CSV. Based on the CSV information you have, certain information might be different in your case. So always pay most of the attention in this phase where you are analyzing data and identifying different elements. Let's say you have identified all the data or the type of data that is there in the CSV. The next part is data mapping. Now you are deciding on the migration. We know where to migrate this data. In HubSpot, you have a single CSV, or the CSV that is going to act like the source of all the data. In Drupal, you need to, import this CSV into different areas. We call them entities, let's say. You might want to create different kind of entities like media, files, nodes, users, taxonomies, etc. So it is a very important step where you have to map that CSV information with Drupal entities, like which column of CSV is going to go where in Drupal. That is what you need to identify as part of this step. And this is basically about figuring out entities where you want to save the information in Drupal. After this, we had like a single CSV, but when you are working with like this CSV in our case was 35 MB CSV file. It contained roughly around 3,000 blog posts, and imagine 3,000 blog posts having different information in different columns. Now, in my case, I had decided that since I have CSV, I'll do CSV migration and not play around with data much. So what we did was we used Google App Script. We fed our HubSpot CSV to Google App Script. We wrote certain programming in JavaScript, and we used Google App Script libraries. And we segmented out this single CSV into multiple CSVs. The reason for that was HubSpot CSV had like 15 columns in it. But for, let's say, user migration, we did not need all the 15 columns. We only wanted like 3 columns of information in it, or 2 columns of information in it. In your case, this is going to be different, right? So I had to divide the information into 4 different CSVs. And later on, these 4 different CSVs acted as the source of different migrations that I had to work on. So yeah, we segmented out, we converted one CSV into multiple CSVs. And later on, like migration approach. Now, we had a single CSV from HubSpot, and we already had a migration project done for this client where we had migrated their website from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10. So we thought that, why not use the existing Drupal migrate ecosystem that we already have installed on our site. So we did not, look into different approaches related to migration. I was thinking of using the feeds module. Then we thought of creating custom importers. But at the end, we decided that we simply go with the migration ecosystem of Drupal. And yeah, we basically created a custom module in Drupal where we wrote different migrations. For in my case, I had authors migration or users migration. Then I had files migration, media migration, and then there was the final blog post migration. So we had entities figured out. Then we simply wrote the migrations for it and used Drush to run those migration during deployment. So yeah, this was about the migration approach. Now, as part of, working this POC, I mean, it was not as straightforward as I explained, because I'm explaining it in very generic terms. So I also faced some challenges, from the start till the deployment. Let's talk about that. The very first challenge I faced was with respect to file ownership. So we when I got the data from HubSpot, I had around 7,000 different file URLs. These files were present across, multiple domains. I identified 20 different domains. And the very first question that came to the mind was who owns these files? Does the client own it? Or, these are third-party images? And the question, was put in front of the client. And luckily, the answer was that, hey, we own these images. So yes, we simply, moved the files from all these 20 different domains into a single server. So yeah, that was the very first challenge or question. In my case, the answer was straightforward, but chances are, that you might not get a straightforward answer. It might be the case that, hey, in like in your client's case, you might get the answer that we don't get on these images. So like the solution would be a different one for you. It will not be file migration. Maybe, you will have to like use the URLs and point to those third-party servers, or different 20 domains or 30 domains in your case. Moving on, the next challenge that I faced was with respect to file domains. As I mentioned, like, there were 20 different file domains. Now, the server that my client has, like it was completely internal infrastructure. They had their servers managed themselves. So there was a firewall in place that, blacklisted or whitelisted the communication to different servers. So we identified few servers when we ran file migration, we saw that certain file downloads were getting blocked because, the communication between the servers were getting blocked. So we identified that this problem was related to the firewall, and we had to raise infrastructure request saying that please whitelist these domains for us so that we are able to migrate the files from all those domains to our server. Then the third one was file downloads. Now, these file downloads, were occasionally failing for us. When we ran the file migration, we identified that, file downloads were sometimes getting failed due to network issues, or, requests getting hanged up in between. And this was resulting in failures. So in my case, what I did was, to overcome this, I wrote a retry logic where, file downloads, and like the file download will kept on, the script will keep on trying the file download until the migration is complete. So if there is a image.png that is getting moved from one server to another, I will try the download. If it fails, then I will retry it for 3 times until it succeeds. So yeah, that was another one. Finally, the fourth one is the app script. Now, in my case, the app script acted as little slow, I would say. Sometimes it was failing without any logical reasons. Then later on, we figured out that this was probably related to huge amount of data. If I have to redo this migration, I would today think of a different solution than AppScript. Maybe use bash scripting, or maybe use Drush to play around with files. One another reason that I might not go with AppScript is when we imported. You remember this slide? Just a minute. Okay, over here. When we gave our HubSpot CSV to AppScript, or imported our CSV into Google Sheets, what happened was there were some columns that contained more than 50,000 characters in them. So there is a limitation in Google Sheets that when you import any CSV that has 50,000 or more characters in it, it will simply empty that column. So yeah, it happened, and to overcome this problem, I had to write a custom Drush command, then bring that data back into these 4 CSVs that you see. So yeah, I had to do that aspect, and I would sort of avoid AppScript in the future for that reason. Moving on, then the next challenge was markup operations. This was, I would say, it is not a challenge. It is more of the business logic that you might have to write depending on your content. In my case, when I was running these migrations, I found out that post body column of HubSpot data contained various elements, twig, HTML, etc. I had to truncate out the twig elements. I had to convert, if I remember, bold elements to strong elements, etc. So I had to do a lot of markup operations in this step. And one of the other markup operations was in Drupal. we have media embedded, right, in the fields. However, HubSpot has image tags. So as part of file migration, I had to convert the files. Convert those paths to file entities, then convert it create media entities as well. So file and media migration was in place, but when we were migrating blog post, we had to convert those image tags again into embedded media in the content markup. So yeah, a lot of markup operations. These operations will vary depending on the data that you are playing with. And yeah, these were the challenges that I faced. You will have different challenges. I think that would be all from my end. So thank you very much for listening to what I had to say. Now I would like to invite Trupti back to the stage.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you for a great presentation on this migration topic. So let's head on to the Q&A section. If anyone has a question, please pop it on the comment section so that we can take it further. So before we head on to the Q&A section, Kunal, I have a question for you. So for this migration, that you did from HubSpot to Drupal, so did you migrate to Drupal version 10 or 9?
So we migrated it to, when we were doing the POC, we were on Drupal 9. Later on, Drupal 10 upgrade happened and I did the migration on Drupal 10.
Okay. So now the site is live on Drupal 10.
Yes.
Okay. I think Ritesh has a question. So Ritesh asks, how long did the migration process take?
So first month, I would say, I remember this request came in around the second week of August and we went live in the second week of December. So, and I was the only one who worked on it. So I'd say, if there are more people, this can happen quickly. But at max, the timeline for me was 4 months. It completely depends on data, I would say. If you have to create 10 different entities, the timeline would vary.
Okay. I have a similar question. I was going to ask this, but Vivek also has a question. So was there any aspect of this migration that you felt challenged and took a good amount of time to find a solution?
I would say not development in at large itself was challenging in certain areas. For example, around markup operations, I would say data analysis aspect was a little not straightforward.
Okay.
Development, once you have figured out the data, once you know the approach, the rest all is you know what to do as a developer. But figuring out taking that lens in front of you and looking at the data is the challenging aspect. It is important to figure out what is there in the data.
Okay.
That was challenging. Yes.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Vivek. So Vivek has one more question. How did you handle the metadata for the content and the files?
In my case, the metadata that I had from HubSpot was SEO title and SEO description. So we simply, picked that information and saved it in Drupal in the meta tags module fields.
Okay.
So we knew entities and we knew where to save the information. With respect to files, I remember as this HubSpot markup has information like image attributes, where there is title associated with the image, there is this alt information. So I saved it in the media and file entities.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Vivek. And we have an interesting question by Pratik. So if there were separate columns already, why use any scripting like Google Apps at all? Simple columns can be manually separated, right?
Yeah. So to answer that, I'll give you a very simple example. One blog post has multiple images in the post body column of this. So in my case, every CSV row belonged to a different blog post that was unique. But one blog post had multiple images. Now, when you run migrations, it becomes tricky for you as a developer, because when you're writing a Drupal migration, how it works is it takes one CSV row as input and it creates one entity out of it. Okay, so for example, if I simply gave like the HubSpot CSV to my migration, what it will do is it will only create one column. But there is a way around. There is some programming that you can do to create n number of entities from a single CSV row, but that becomes tricky. The simpler aspect was like segment out these CSVs and simply create a different CSV that has all the 7,000 files.
Okay.
So basically, to answer this question, simplify your CSVs as you want. Like, in my case, there were 4 different entities. Why would I, load a 35 MB CSV file for all the migrations and process it? Simplify the information, I would say, because then your development will become simpler.
Okay, right. That's a good one. Pratik has one more interesting question. So hypothetically, if you were supposed to pitch the Axelerant marketing team to move from HubSpot to Drupal, what would be your pitch? This is an interesting one.
So okay. I'll like basically, meet with Nathan and offer him some pani puris to, move from HubSpot to Drupal, because no other way can like convince him.
Okay.
Because I remember like HubSpot, like we were on HubSpot initially, then we moved to Drupal, then we moved to like, HubSpot again.
Okay.
It has already happened. So chances are very like slim that marketing will get convinced.
Okay. Cool. So Ankur has one more question. So what's more challenging and why? Drupal to HubSpot migration or HubSpot to Drupal migration? Which one is more challenging? I
would say for me, moving from Drupal to HubSpot will be challenging because I am a Drupal developer. So, I knew like, what to do with respect to, reading the HubSpot data, where to put that data, and like data mapping and creating what kind of entities, etc. But I'm not expert in HubSpot, so I don't know like what the content structure in the backend looks like in HubSpot. So for me, it will be like obviously HubSpot to Drupal will be easy because I'm familiar with the systems, and like HubSpot to Drupal, I really don't have any idea. Okay, no problem. So I think we have one more question, which is the last question for today. I think Annam is asking, how was the post-launch review for this migration? Post-launch review, as in like, are we talking about the testing aspect and verifying whether the information is correct? Yeah. Okay. So before go live, the information was reviewed. We had a UAT session where the stakeholder of the HubSpot content basically reviewed certain critical notes. And once we identified that, that the information is looking correct, we went live. Okay, cool. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. To add to that, I think, content team, the HubSpot content team has a crawler in place. I think the client uses Lumar. It's a crawler. What it does, I mean, I really don't know how it functions, but it you feed some URLs to it, and it basically, compares like the both the systems, the content at both the places. So that's how it was verified. Whether the information is there, like, is it similar in both the places or not? Okay. Yeah, because the content was too large and you had to verify that as well. So yes. I think that is it. We don't have any more questions. But team, if you have any more questions that you want to ask Kunal, please reach out to Kunal for any migration related queries. And thank you for joining, everyone. Thanks, Kunal, for your presentation. We would meet soon. New session. Until then, thank you. Stay tuned. Bye-bye. Thank you.